Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, we are blessed to be learning the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the personalities of Islam. Let's start off with our intentions for seeking knowledge and teaching. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I intend to seek knowledge and to teach to benefit myself and to benefit others, to remind myself and to remind others, to profit myself and to profit others, to urge adherence to the book of Allah and the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to invite to guidance and to guide to that which is good, seeking the face of Allah, His pleasure, His grace and His reward subhanahu wa ta'ala. We'll continue on with the Fatiha. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Let's continue with our dua. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم ارزقنا يا ربي بفهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين وإلهام الملائكة المقربين في عافية يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم افتح علينا فتوح العارفين وفقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل واهدنا إلى سواء السبيل. اللهم انفعنا وارفعنا وعرفنا بالعلم النافع وانفعنا به أنفسنا وأهلنا وأوطاننا وديارنا وجميع المسلمين يا إله العالمين. آمين آمين يا رب العالمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, we continue with our legacy. We are still with the saviors of Islamic spirit, and we have Ibn Taymiyyah. His name is Hafiz Ibn Taymiyyah. I will continue on with his achievements, literary achievements. We went through his knowledge and his ability to do lots of things. Now we go on to his achievements. There are some distinguishing characteristics of Ibn Taymiyyah's writings which make them singularly different from those of his contemporary scholars. So we look at what he writes, and it seems that what he writes makes him very different from others. They can still hold our interest and are, in fact, again, exerting a formative influence in the more thoughtful sections of the Muslim society. So they still hold our interest, although it's different, but it has a great effect, a profound effect on the thoughtful sections, that means the intellects of the society. The first impression that a reader gathers from his writings is that the author has reached the core of religion. So you can understand, you can see that this person has understood religion well, right? He has reached the core of the religion. His discussions tend to center around the fundamental basis of the subject matter, while his forceful, lucid, and exhaustive treatment of the subject captivates the heart and mind of the reader. So he's a very profound writer, and he is able to engage the readers, right, and allow them to understand and be captivated and be fascinated by his writings. Almost all of his compositions were the full-fledged treatises or small articles, especially those which deal with the creedal, dialectical, or juristic question, throw light on some inmost aspect or essence of the Sharia. Creedal is aqidah. Aqidah, that means main creed. From one word, creed. That means the belief, the foundations of belief. All right, dialectical, of course, we understand that as rational thinking, right? And then juristic questions, of course, fiqh. And so as he writes these articles, right, they actually throw light on some inmost aspects. So he was able to gel the various concepts, the various fields of writing with the essence of the aspects or inmost aspect or essence of the Sharia. Another feature of his writing is that they reflect the ideas, conditions, and problems of his day. So from his writing, we can see what are the problems that was encountered during his time. One can easily find out from his essays the moral and intellectual conditions, social problems, and religious and cultural life of the society of his time. These descriptions also speak of the likes and dislikes, views and feelings of Ibn Taymiyyah in regard to the prevailing conditions for he never wrote as an unconcerned and indifferent narrator of the events. So we could feel his writing because he writes with passion. He writes with great concern for the prevailing conditions at this time, prevailing conditions, of course. So he was able to speak of the likes and dislikes, the views and feelings. So the writings in itself, you can tell from the writings what are his concerns. His commentaries on the Quran verses restate the abiding truths in terms of life and surrounding conditions, make a close study of the different sections of society, their manners and morals, style, customs and habits, and point out the disfiguring innovations in form and thought resulting from the disregard of divine guide. So there was a lot of bid'ah, actually innovations of the bid'ah, new things which are introduced into the religion. He's very concerned for that. And his codices are his Quranic, he has tafsirs, lots of tafsirs, and he's very good at the tafsir, and he connects the tafsirs with the situations, and he learns lessons from a tafsir he applied to the situation at his time. The intimate bearing of his writings on life of the then society has imparted to them attraction and effectiveness, which will hold attention of the people for all times to come. So we should have, if you have time, to actually read up his writings on the society. Whatever subject Ibn Taymiyyah takes up, he presents in a few pages all the connected material, culling them from hundreds of volumes on different subjects. Right. So he is very good at summarizing facts, and he can bring various ideas, right? Hundreds of volumes is into a few pages only. You can cut them. The comprehensive treatment of every issue on which he writes, whether pertaining to speculative sciences or creed and religion, is peculiar to Ibn Taymiyyah. So he has a special gift, right, to write on issues, right, and very, very comprehensively he does that. At times, the matter collected by him in a single volume is so extensive that it takes a long and intensive study to assimilate it. So we need to have knowledge to read his works, and we need time to understand what he's trying to say. At the same time, however, the multitude of ideas and excess of details cloud the original theme and make it difficult for the reader to follow his thoughts. That's another problem. One problem in his writing is that he knows so much that he would link one to the other, link to the other, link to the other, all his ideas and all his knowledge. And then sometimes we just lose the theme of the story or the article in itself. Although along the way you do still get knowledge, but still you forgot the main theme because he goes around, right, connecting one idea to the other. But this does not in any way decrease the usefulness of his works, each one of which is a compendium of all the then available information on that particular subject. So in doing so, he actually compile and summarize the most important things, the information that's available, right, which you would need to read a lot more, but he has condensed them in his article writings. But for these encyclopedic works of Ibn Taymiyyah, a lot of precious thoughts, utterances, and writings of the old would have been lost forever. So it is because of the work of Ibn Taymiyyah. If not because of this work, but all these precious thoughts, utterances, and writings of the old would have been lost forever. So he was instrumental in preserving the works of the generations before him. Nevertheless, Ibn Taymiyyah's writing lacked concentration of treatment, as he very often switches over to a related subject which unnecessarily prolongs the discussions. As mentioned just now, that was the problem of his writing, is that because he has so much knowledge, right? When he comes to one point, then he will link this, he will link this, he will switch to this. All are related, but sometimes it prolongs the discussion. Of course, he has his ideas of doing this. Maybe it depends on the right reader. If the reader finds it very difficult to actually understand where he's going. But those who are of high intellect would slowly realize that he is giving us a lot of knowledge. Anybody not acquainted with his writings thus finds it extremely difficult to assimilate his ideas as well as keep his eyes on the central theme of the essay. This is undoubtedly a natural defect found in the writings of those endowed with a breadth of interest and nimbleness along with impassioned eloquence, as was the case with Ibn Taymiyyah. The writer here saying that it's a defect, but some might not see it as a defect. It depends on the reader. I mean, if an academician sees things differently from a lay person. An academician might find his writing really astounding because he is able to connect various ideas, various information, and comes out with the ideas of the relationship between the various ideas. So a person of an academician status would consider that very intriguing and very tactful and very eloquent of him, but those who are not would find actually it very difficult. It seemed that he was unable to keep himself strictly confined to the narrow limits of any subject, and the restless wanderings of his mind continued to recall everything connected with the matter in hand in quick succession. That could be seen, as mentioned, it could be seen as a strength in him because as he writes on one subject, his mind can link lots of other ideas into it and connect them. But those who are not used to such writing, they like to be focused on one topic, and finish off one topic, and then when you digress, they sort of get very confused. So it depends on the reader actually. So this also holds true of his lectures. One of his disciples, Hafiz Abu Hafs al-Baza'i, succinctly described in these words: whenever he started lecturing on any subject, the providence unveiled before his eyes the treasure house of knowledge. All right, so like what Allah has provided for him, Allah shows him the treasure house of knowledge, recondite truths and hidden meanings, precepts and principles enunciated by the masters of yore. So he could see lots of things. So it's not easy for those who's not aware of all these things. But it is a treasure house of knowledge, definitely. Truths, hidden meanings, precepts, and principles enunciated by the masters of yore. Masters of yore are the old those who came before him, those scholars that came before him. All right. And all the similitudes and illustrations of the subject found in Arabic poetics, and it sees that a hate stream of knowledge was surging forth like a swift torrent. So poetry, everything was like in, because he could remember lots of stories and lots of incidences, lots of hadiths, that is linked. So that is why you really got to be very, you see such lecturers, you got to be very focused. You got to listen to him and catch as much as possible of the knowledge that he's imparting onto you. You might lose the whole train of thoughts, right? Because he might go from one story to another, but as he sees it, it is linked to the theme that he's talking about. The same was the case during debates, wherein he usually raised too many issues which confounded his contenders who found it difficult to answer them adequately. This is the reason why the scholars of Syria and Egypt more often fought shy of challenging him during academic discussions or polemic disputation, because he is able to bring up lots of concepts, lots of ideas, lots of queries. So that is why they find it difficult to engage with him. All right. One of his contemporary scholars, the noted debater, Sheikh Safiuddin Al-Hindi, once remarked, Ibn Taymiyyah, you are like a breezy bird. Whenever I try to catch hold of you at one point, you swiftly move on to another. So this is one point goes to another point, goes to another point, goes to another point. They just find it so difficult to actually comprehend him. The writings of Ibn Taymiyyah, like his speeches, are burdened with excessive details and digressions on the main topic, but even these, being informative and brilliantly couched, are rewarding for painstaking students. So as this writer admits, no doubt, yeah, his writings are very, very heavy, but those who really are brilliant and who really seek information, right, they have to work hard, right, for painstaking. So don't really work hard to understand and to gain much from his knowledge. Lastly, Ibn Taymiyyah's works also differ from other writings of his time on dialectical and juristic subjects. So this article is also very different from others. So deviating from the beaten track of a graceless and severe style and legal wordage of writings on these subjects, Ibn Taymiyyah's dress of thought is graced by literary allusions and quick wit, ease and lucidity of style and vigor and eloquence, which possess an immediate appeal to the readers. Now, this is about dialectics and about law, right? A juristic law, law of Islam. So he was able to move away from the ways of the previous of other scholars, which actually make it very graceless and the style being severe and just very, very wordy of writing. So for him, he make it the thought is graced by literally allusions. So he give examples, and he's very quick wit and easy and lucid. Lucid means very clear. So although he might digress, but it is clear. Vigor and eloquence, which possess an immediate appeal to the reader. So he writes on the precepts of the old masters and the seemliness of the course followed by them. His vigor of thought imparts a life, a spirit to his writing that vies with the liveliness and grace of a forceful oration. All right, so he writes concerning all the other scholars, right? Seemliness, and of course, followed by them, his vigor of thought imparts a life. So he can really write that actually gives life to the writing, and his liveliness and grace of a forceful oration. So he like a orator, one who talks. His writings really you can feel his writings basically. So it's a different level of writing. Ibn Taymiyyah's biographers and contemporary writers have also made a mention of his silvery tongue, which was matched by his literary flourish. So he talks well and he writes well. Speaking of the force and flow of Ibn Taymiyyah elocution, Hafiz Abu Hafs al-Bazar says his oration is the force of the flood, the rising tide of the sea. That means it's very, very powerful when he talks, right? And it penetrates and it affects people. When he spoke, it appeared that he was not here, but somewhere else. His eyes half closed and the face radiant with a heavenly grace. His haranguing overawed his audience. Right, haranguing doesn't sound so good, like pushing, coaxing, or something like that. But he was able to captivate his audience. So when he speaks, it's as if he moves from place to place, and he is somewhere else. That means he wanders around in his speeches, and he is full of joy in what he has to say. That is why you see beauty in his face, and he's able to coax his listener, his audience. Ibn Taymiyyah's efforts to revive the true faith cover a vast field which can broadly be categorized into revival of faith in the unity of God, eradication of pantheistic ideas. So he brings back Tawhid, the unity of God. Pantheistic ideas are Sufistic ideas, which can be quite troubling, right? When they go into ideas of being one with God and things like that. Criticism of philosophy as the ideas which we do understand are rational thinking of man, syllogistic logic, and that is also part of philosophy, part of rational thinking and dialectics to assert the superiority of the Quran and the Sunnah. So he's all going back to the Quran and the Sunnah and his work is all about ensuring that people understand the reality of the superiority of the Quran and the Sunnah, and not to be involved with all these various fields of thoughts that are based on human thinking. extirpation of un-Islamic beliefs through refutation of Christianity and Shiism, and lastly, rejuvenation of Islamic thought and its related sciences. So, as we know, when when the Muslims conquered lands, right, most of the lands are under the Christians and some of them under the Jews, mainly under the Christians, right? So they were influenced by some of the Christian ideas. And of course, Shiism comes in around there. We have the Fatimids in Egypt, which has a profound influence. We saw how they had actually distorted the religion, and it has influenced a lot of people. So you want to bring back Islamic thought and the related sciences. All right, reformative endeavors. Thoughts borrowed from an un-Islamic sources, irreligious precepts and dogmas fostered by the Ismailite Caliphate of Egypt, and the pantheistic doctrines diffused by the illiterate and misguided mystics had been given birth to numerous heretical beliefs and customs in those days. All right, so as mentioned here, right, the Muslims, we got to understand that as Islam conquered more and more land and people convert, right, they tend to hold on to some of their ideas because it's quite difficult to let go of all these ideas. And some of the ideas that irreligious, right, and dogmas fostered by the Ismailite. Ismailite is the Egyptians. The Shiite group, another Shiite group, very wrong, some wrong ideas on religion, some wrong beliefs. And the pantheistic doctrines. This is the misguided and illiterate. He doesn't say all the mystics are bad, but there are those who are misguided and illiterate who just follow through and do not understand the reality of moving into states of Sufistic states. So they have caused a lot of heretical beliefs and customs to be introduced. The Muslim masses have begun to look up to their religious teachers of yore, saints and martyrs as intercessors with Allah in almost the same way as Ezra and Isa alayhi salam has elevated to the pedestal of divinity by the Jews and Christians. The Jews considered Ezra is a priest, right, who changed a lot of the laws of Judaism and rewrote everything, and they actually consider him as God because they saw him as one who made lots of changes in their lives. Right, and the Christians, of course, we know Isa alayhi salam has been taken as God, right, just because of his various miracles, and also born without a father. Now, so they actually think that these people are the Muslims actually take up their saints and scholars and martyrs as those who can intercede with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The tombs of Muslim saints presented the same spectacle, the same rituals, devotional services, and oblations as were commonly performed in martyrs and sanctoriums of the other faiths. So basically, they venerate the dead ones, the dead scholars, and they even pray to the tombs of the dead scholars, and they had rituals and activities that are very alien to Islam, which is not Islam at all, right? So that is why he went all out to remove such wrong beliefs of the Muslims. Muslims to invoke the aid of their saints rather than of Allah. So they ask their saints to help them rather than going to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, in Islam, we are allowed, when we have saints who are alive, right? We ask them to, we know that these saints are connected to Allah, and we seek them to make dua for us. That's a different thing altogether. Not to just ask them to help directly as if, they have the power. They do not have the power. These saints eventually are those people connected to Allah who would ask from Allah. So we ask them to dua for us. That's what it is. Repaired to their graves in large numbers to celebrate the anniversaries of their death. So they always go to the graves of the saints, to celebrate anniversaries of their death. So they see this as bid'ah because this is never ever done by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. constructed palatial buildings on their tombs. Huge buildings were constructed, performed ceremonies implying reliance on them, and preambulated around their shrines at the house of Allah. They even tawaf around the graves of the saints. So they have this is what they call bid'ah, things which are introduced, which is not from Rasulullah, and to some extent might end up being in a state of shirk by giving them powers as the powers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So graphic descriptions of the perverted beliefs and practices popular in those days have been left by Ibn Taymiyyah. So he wrote about what they did and how they do it. Some of these are reproduced here to give an idea of the popularity and strength of conviction gained by the perversion of saint worship. Right, so we see how their obsession with the saint, and they actually worship the saint, right, and how popular it is and how many people would actually follow through. Divinity of saints. Most of the people hold the saints in reverence no less than Allah and follow the commands of the attendants at their tombs as if they were the saints. So this is the state of affairs, right? So we have the saints, we have the saint, like example, saint who have passed on, right? So they consider the saint, they revere the saint as much as they revere Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's where they're wrong. Saint is good, yes, supposed to look at examples of the saint, but not to give them as a reverence as that of the reverence of Allah. That means it's as good as giving partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the tombs, those who attend to the tombs are considered as like infallible. They listen to the instructions and commands of the attendants. Supplications are offered to the departed saints to get their difficulties solved, while the attendants are presumed to have the authority of declaring what is lawful or not under the Sharia. So this was what's happening. They make du'as to the saint. They ask the saint to help them. They ask the saint to remove their problems, right? And they also allow the attendants to formulate laws, right? And who wish it might not be in line with Islam. These people have in fact dismissed Allah from divinity and Muhammad from prophethood. So they have given partners to Allah and also decided to obey their attendants as if they were the prophet of Allah. Not often people come to seek redress against the wrongs done to them by the kings or to have some of their private affairs set right by a saint. So if they feel they are unjustly treated, they will go to the saint and ask the saint to correct what's the situation. And other affairs also, they will go to the saint. The attendant then goes into the shrine and promptly returns to report that the petitioner's request has been transmitted to Allah through the saint, and the Prophet as well as Allah has accordingly sent word to the king in this affair. So this is how they were doing things. Wallahu alam bisawab. Of course, this is not the way of Rasulullah sallallahu where you can have direct contact with Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu and even come out with proposals on how to how this problem will be resolved, and as much as Allah has accordingly sent a word to the king through the saint, and they have told the king not to be unfair or to treat this person properly. Is this not idolatry and ascribing partners to Allah? Surely it is blasphemy, or rather naked idolatry, which would not be tolerated even by the Christians and polytheists, nor would they be duped by such tricks. So there are groups of people who do such things, and they are very much attended to by the public, because the public needs someone to turn to, right? Physically, it's easier for them rather than to go direct to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The way these attendants avail themselves of the offerings and presents brought to the shrines answers the description thus given in the Quran. So the attendants also collect money and presents, right, that are brought to the shrines. O you who believe, lo, many of the rabbis and monks devour the wealth of mankind wantonly and debar men from the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Surah At-Tawbah reminds us, O believers, right? The rabbis and the monks devour the wealth of mankind. That means they get presents, they get lots of things, right? And also stop men from the path of Allah by introducing rules and regulations, right, which they have made up themselves. Tomb worship. Many of these ignoramuses could be seen offering prayers facing the tombs or beseeching the saints to take pity on them and pardon their sins. Some have even their backs towards the Kaaba while offering prayers facing these graves. When they are asked to desist from it, they declare that the Kaaba is meant to serve as a Qibla for the laity, while the elect and pure in heart need pay divine honors to the saint. So you can see what kind of corruption has existed, right? They would pray towards the graves and not towards Kaaba. And when they are advised to go against it, they actually would say that facing the Kaaba is just a direction, right? But it is a Kaaba, is a Qibla, a direction for the common people. But those who are pure and elect means they are of high status, high station, then they need to pay divine honors to the saint alone. They do not need to face Kaaba. So they just pray and face the tombs. Of these persons, some are even known for their piety and devotion to prayer, and are thousands of disciples. So that's the problem with this, they are pray, they seem to pray and everything, but they have thousands of disciples who honor them more than they honor Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there are other two who take to a life of exacting self-mortification and direct the disciples, desiring penitence to complete a probation of 40 days prayer and penance at the tomb of the spiritual mentors. So these are ways of in which the leaders would bring them through a regime of seeking forgiveness, right, and repentance at the tomb of their spiritual mentors. So they believe that these mentors will be able to help them. So they have a 40-day seclusion kind of thing. They sit meditating over the graves like idolaters contemplating upon their deities. These persons claim to have an exalted state of feeling, inspiration, and rapturous joy in the shrines, in which they never attain in mosques. Although Islam is found in the house which Allah has allowed to be exalted, and His name shall be remembered. Surah An-Nur. In Surah An-Nur, Allah mentions that the house of Allah is where you would find the joy and happiness and feel the light of knowledge. And His name shall be remembered in the house of Allah and not at the places of the shrines. Irreverence to Allah. The sin worshippers do not feel any hesitation in committing grievous sins, but they tremble with fear if they happen to see the dome of their saint's shrine while deviating from the path of virtue. So they commit sins, they have no problem with that. But if they see the shrine of the saint, then they would get very, very agitated. There they bid each other to be careful of the departed soul resting in the mausoleum. The saint they fear, but not Allah, who has created the heaven and the earth and causes the moon to expand and decrease. If someone points out the blasphemy of their beliefs, they try to intimidate him with the wrath of their sin in the same way as Ibrahim salam was threatened by the idolaters. So if anybody try to advise them and say that this is the way is wrong, right, then they would threaten them, right, with the wrath of their sin. Just as Nabi Ibrahim, his people argued with him. He said, dispute you with me concerning Allah when He has guided me? I fear not at all that which you set up beside Him, unless my Rabb wills aught. My Rabb includes all things in His knowledge. So I don't fear anything unless my Rabb allows me to or causes me to. Will you not then remember? How should I fear that which you set up beside Him, when you fear not to set up beside Allah that which He has revealed unto? No warrant. She has revealed unto you no warrant. So why should I fear? And this is Nabi Ibrahim discussed in the surah in the Quran, talking to his people who try to frighten him with their gods, with the wrath of their gods. He said, why should I fear that which you set up beside Him, when you fear not to set up beside Allah that for which He has revealed unto you no warrant? I shouldn't be fearful of what you have, because you are not fearful of giving partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He has not given you the authority to do so. So which of the two factions has more right to safety? Answer me that if you have knowledge. So who would be better? One who follows Allah or one who follows gods that are created? Those who believe and obscure not their belief by wrongdoing, theirs is safety. They are rightly guided. So that is from the Quran. Derivation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The description of the saint worshippers' sacrilege behavior given by Ibn Taymiyyah goes on to say that they poke fun at the unity of God and sneer at the prayers offered to Him. So they make fun of Allah, of the oneness of Allah, and they make fun of the people who pray to Him. They look with scorn upon Hajj and Hajis and believe that the visit to the shrines of the saint is more estimable than the performance of Hajj. And it says greater esteem in visiting the shrines of the saints rather than going for Hajj. So they have gone way out. This is what the Shias believe, and many among the Sunnis also. Some are even insolent. Some are even insolent enough to trifle with the mosque and the prayers offered therein, for they believe that the invocation of blessings by the sheikhs carry greater merit than the prayer offered to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that was the state of the people. They have such great reverence for the saints that they actually think the saints are better than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A sect among the Shias claiming to be the follower of Yunus Qais not only has faith in such blasphemous doctrines, but even express it thus in the verses quoted here. Hark and let us lay in ruins the mosque to open a wine shop. The pulpit we must dismantle to fashion it into a lute and fiddle. From the leaves of Quran we make a flute, and of the Qazi's beard the guitar strings. So this is a poem, right? And it is a poem showing that they have no regard and no respect for the Quran, no respect for authority, no respect for the mosque, right? And such shameful impudence. They are so brazenly shameless that they assert an oath that they know to be manifestly untrue, but would dare not to swear by their saints what they know to be correct. So they are so brazenly shameless that they assert an oath what they know to be manifestly. I mean, they make an oath although they know it's not truthful, but they would dare not swear by their saints what they know to be correct. So they have such great reverence for their saint. Even if it's correct, they will not dare to swear by their saints. Their dictum runs, we need no sustenance which is not from our sheikh. When they slay a goat, they say, in the name of my Rabb and Master. Some of them claim that their sheikh is superior to prophets of Allah, while others hold their spiritual mentors to be partakers of divinity, as the Christian think of Isa alayhi salam. This is where they have gone right astray by considering their saints to be better than the prophets of Allah. There are still others who utter the name of their saints with the highest marks of respect, claim that their sheikhs have attained union with God, compose verses attributing divine powers to them, while the sheikhs pretend that Musa had conversed with them when he fell in a swoon, or that their call makes the heavens move. And it is their fright which makes the worlds tremble and oceans restless. So these are the claims of the sheikh. Sometimes we see this in our community where some supposedly religious person can go into trances, and they even say that the prophet has entered them, and they can talk and give rulings and things like that. And a lot of the commoners actually believe in what they say. All right, so that's the problem that existed then, and Ibn Taymiyyah was out there trying to change the state. All right, we were doing the 16th hadith. La taghdab, don't be angry. Walakal jannah, and for you will be jannah. And Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu, from Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu, anna rajulan qala lin nabiyyi, that a man, he said to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, awsini, advise me. Qala, he said, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, la taghdab, don't be angry. Faraddada miraran, and he repeated again, right? And qala, Rasulullah says, la taghdab, don't be angry. Rawahul Bukhari. All right, so that's it. Do not become angry, and paradise is yours. And man asked Rasulullah for advice, and he told him several times not to be angry. So this hadith illustrates the importance of controlling anger, as this will eventually lead to noble manners. And the root problem with a lot of people is the inability to control anger. When you're not in control of your anger, that is when your manners becomes foul. This will gather lots of good and prevent evil. So by controlling your anger, you will be gathering lots of good and you would prevent evil. Beautiful manners are the keys to paradise. Curbing our anger will give us control over our desires and thus stops us from disobedience. Controlling anger is enough advice to enter Jannah. So Rasulullah SAW, he asked again and again. It shows that he's like not convinced. Are you sure? Is there anything else for me to get to Jannah? And Rasulullah says, just control your anger, and that is enough for you to enter Jannah. Rasulullah says, for you is Jannah. Harms of anger are physical and material, moral and immaterial, and spiritual as well as religious. So harms of anger to a person are physical, like angry, blood pressure goes up, heartbeat increases, he might lose whatever he has, and loses his moral, also his spiritual states, all will lose, and his religion also. Harms for society, hatred, grudges, enmity, hostilities, kinships are cut, life is corrupted, and communities collapse. It's a very bad thing, right? Both for self and for community. All right, we continue. Repelling and treating anger. Anger is part of man's nature and disposition, but the Muslim who is connected to the highest malakut protects himself from it. Malakut is highest dominion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It means those who have great fortitude, great knowledge, they would be able to control themselves. He repels its evil by staying away from its causes so that it does not emerge, and he treats it if it does emerge. So first, he tries to move away from causes of anger. And if it does happens, then he would learn how to treat it so that if it does emerge, he knows how to manage the anger. The causes of anger are numerous and varied, and they include one, arrogance. And because of the arrogance of people, they become angry. Haughtiness and pride towards people. He feels himself so great, right? And he is so proud that when people sort of say a thing which he feels is an insult to him, he gets very angry. Derision and scorn towards others. And because of his looking down at others is a part of arrogance, part of haughtiness also, in a different form. So he looks down on others and he gets easily angry at people. Abundant joking, especially when it's not true. So when you joke too much, say a lot of things, right, then you cause people to become angry. Arguing, yes, when you argue and then your arguments are not taken in well, or you end up getting angry. Delving into that which does not concern one, and striving to increase wealth and rank. So you say things that does not concern you, and then people contradict you, and you get upset and you get angry. And of course, working to increase wealth and rank, and that's where anger also comes in. We are not able to control your anger because you feel people are trying to maybe prevent you, deny you of the right to the wealth and to the rank. The Muslim is called to rid himself of these blameworthy traits and rise above them and train his soul to do the opposite. That's what we are. We're supposed to overcome all those traits of love for wealth, rush for wealth, arguing, haughtiness, scorning people, deriding people, making fun of people, joking away, and all those things that causes anger to prevail in us. As for treating anger, there are many ways that Islam has shown us, which include: 1, training oneself to be adorned with noble manners. So it's a matter of training. It is, for most people, it is not natural. It's not easy not to be angry, but you need to train yourself. Have forbearance. And that means you It's called hilm. Forbearance means people do things, you're able to be in control of yourself, or you look at them and see them in a different light, give them excuses, right, and move on. Patience, to control your emotions and to circumspect in matters. That means to have patience and circumspection in matters. That means you're able to look at the whole thing in totality before acting on it, before allowing yourself to fall into states of anger and saying things which you do not mean to say. And carefulness in conduct and judgment. So this is a lot of training, right? To be able to be very careful in how you behave, to be very careful in how you judge people, because in your judgment of people, in your assumptions of people's behavior, it causes you to become angry sometimes. Our model for this is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Zaid bin Ibn Sun'ah came to him before his Islam as a Jew, to test him on the attributes of prophethood. As a Jew, he knew the characteristics of prophethood. In fact, this particular person here, he has been observing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he seemed to have some kind of a checklist where he will have the characteristics of the last prophet, and he will check whenever he was with Rasulullah to confirm that Rasulullah was the final prophet. So he tested, last one was to test of Rasulullah's forbearance, as him should surpass his anger. Then the ignorant person's extreme ignorance should only increase him in forbearance. That means he wants to test that if Rasulullah is made angry, whether Rasulullah is able to forbear with it. And if a person, he would actually become even more forbearing when he is faced with someone who is really ignorant. He is able to give excuse to that ignorant person, and he becomes more forbearing in the presence of that person. So he does demanded the repayment of a debt that he owed him before his repayment was actually due, showing him all kinds of rudeness and harshness. So he decided to test Rasulullah SAW. He actually lent money to Rasulullah SAW, but the agreement was to pay on a certain date. But before the due date, he came around and started insulting Rasulullah with all kinds of rudeness and harshness, which the Sahabas just couldn't bear to hear of such attacks on Rasulullah. He responded with absolute magnanimity, and a wide smile. Rasulullah, right, wasn't despite all the abuses that he was thrown at him, he was really magnanimous, and he smiled. Umar scolded the man. Umar wasn't going to tolerate this nonsense from this man. So he said, in order to teach and refine him and the man, right? So Umar was there. He must scold the man, but Rasulullah intervened, and his intervention was to teach and refine him, and the man, the him refers to Umar radiallahu anhu, and the man who was rude to Rasulullah. He and I have a greater need for other than this, Ya Umar. So he's telling Umar, right, we don't need your anger here. We don't need you to scold him. We have other needs. So he's telling Umar, you should tell me to pay off the debt more efficiently. So that is my need. My need here is that you should advise me to think of the debt and pay more efficiently. Of course, in this particular situation, the time due is not up yet, but then still Rasulullah told him to advise Rasulullah, and you should tell him to reclaim his debt in a better manner, and you should advise him, right, to be more polite in asking for his money. So this is what we need. We don't need you to scold us. We don't need you to scold him. He thus commanded that the debt be paid back, and he gave him more than his right to compensate for the fright that Umar had given him. So this is the way of Rasulullah. The man got more than what he owed, right? Because as a compensation for what Sayyidina Umar had done to him. So this led to him becoming a Muslim and his salvation from Allah's anger and his fire. Right, so the man, Zaid, became a Muslim after he finally saw that Rasulullah SAW was a man of great forbearance. In fact, after that, he actually said that, Ya Rasulullah, I know I have been observing you, and I have confirmed that you are the Prophet of Allah, except for one characteristic that is forbearance. And I've tested it on you and I see great forbearance in you. So I take you as a prophet, and he became a Muslim. This has been related by Al-Hibban, Ibn Hibban, Al-Hakim, and Al-Tabarani. And remaining firm and controlling oneself if one becomes angry. So you become angry, hold yourself. Control yourself. Remembering the consequences of anger and the virtue of controlling one's rage and pardoning those who do wrong. So how do you do that? How do you remain firm and control yourself? Is that you remember the consequences of anger and the virtue of controlling one's rage, and then pardon those who do wrong. So if they have done wrong, then just forgive them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالْكَاذِبِينَ الْغَيْظَ وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ وَالْكَاذِبِينَ غَيْظَ, كاذبين, those who control their rage and pardon other people. So you control your anger and you just move on. Af here is used. That means you just let go. That's it. Allah loves the good doers, the muhsinin, those who strive for excellence, and not good doers. Good doers are just too simplistic translation of the muhsinin, because muhsinin comes from an ihsan, which means excel, right? Or those who do things to beautify their manners and their characteristics. Now Allah loves you. You want Allah to love you? Then you work hard to control your anger and just move on and let go of the faults of others. Ahmad, Abu Dawud, At-Tirmidhi, and Ibn Majah has related that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever controls his rage, when he is able to act upon it, that means you have the power to act on your anger, but you control it. Allah will summon him on the day of standing at the head of all created beings, so that he can give him, choose whatever maiden he wants. It means a great reward will await for him. Allah will bless him with a great reward. Ahmad has also related there is no slave who controls himself except his heart is filled with faith. So when you're able to be in control of your anger, it's a lot of training to be in control of your anger, and your heart will be filled with faith, inshallah. And according to Abu Dawud, Allah fills him with security and faith. So the ability to control your anger will allow you to be secure and having faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right, we'll take a break here.
And he said, too many successful wars. And the man didn't understand that. And he said, how could too many successful wars destroy a nation? And he said, because the wars will weaken their people and the rulers become haughty and arrogant. And you never have a weakened people with haughty and arrogant rulers except they will perish. Our Prophet ﷺ encouraged, but he encouraged training, and he would tell his people to train, but he never desired to meet an enemy on the battlefield. And in Al-Bukhari, he said, "La tatamannaw liqa al-adu." Never desire to meet an enemy. Never desire to meet an enemy. But if you have to meet them, then be brave. Then be brave. The Prophet ﷺ, grappling was the way that the Prophet ﷺ would determine if a young person was ready to be part of his army when they were defending their homeland, Medina, which was aggressed upon several times. He would actually have them wrestle, and he would watch them and determine if they were ready. So grappling was the art that determined their ability to be part of the army. His own two grandsons, Hassan and Hussein, he was watching them wrestle, and he said, "Hiya Hassan, come on Hassan." And Fatima, the mother, looked at the Prophet and said, "Do you prefer Hassan?" He said, "No, but I hear Jibril saying, 'Come on Hussein.'" The Prophet ﷺ was a great martial spirit, but always for the good. And he always wanted the best for all people. He's a mercy according to our tradition. The Quran says in Surah Al-Anbiya, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We have only sent you as a mercy to all the worlds. So it's a great blessing to have a warrior spirit like Habib in the Muslim community. Muslims have been thrown to the ground all over the world. We have a lot of places where they've been battered upon by armies that have much superior forces. And unfortunately, there's a lot of suffering. The great Afghan people, a great scholarly people with a great tradition, have been broken and suffering greatly. The Libyan people and other people with a great warrior spirit, Omar Mukhtar, they've also been suffering. The Yemeni people, the great people suffering. The Palestinians, who historically were a very peaceful people. Palestinians have a very peaceful tradition. There's over 3,000 travel logs written in the 19th century about visiting Palestine by Europeans. Not one of them mentions violence or civil strife between the religious communities. Palestinians were never known for that kind of belligerence. The Iraqis, another people of great learning. So much of our science, mathematics comes out of Iraq, fallen on hard times. So it's not surprising that they feel uplifted when they see Habib throw down people that trash talk our religion and feel like shouting out Allahu Akbar. I was thinking about trash talking him until I watched him fight Conor McGregor. Then I changed my mind. So my son, because we're Irish, my sons are half Mexican, half Irish. But because we're Irish, one of my sons actually was a Conor McGregor fan until he saw that a Muslim was going to fight him, and then he switched sides. And that's proof that faith trumps clan. And that's one of the powers of our religion, is that we give up nationalism for something greater, which is the spirit. So I wouldn't dare trash talk Habib. I actually just gave him a hug, and I felt like I was hugging a rod of iron. So he actually squeezed me to check me out. And so I'm going to go home and start lifting some weights. So next time I see him, so Anyway, alhamdulillah. It's a great blessing to be here. I really hope that people take these words to heart, that we need to really encourage, especially our young people. So many young kids now are just playing these ridiculous games, wasting their life. We see so many overweight young people now. When I was young, you never saw overweight young people. It was very rare. But now there's so many overweight young people, which is very unhealthy. And over time, it gets worse and worse. So it's really important to have your kids train. I had my boys go to a Korean, up to the black belt, the older ones, because I really believe in that. And when I was younger, a lot of us were very influenced by the great martial artist Bruce Lee, and so a lot of young people from my generation, which shows you how old I am, from my generation, everybody was suddenly wanting to learn martial arts. And that's what a martial spirit does, really restores that desire, especially in young men, to learn how to defend themselves, but then to honor that knowledge, never to abuse that knowledge, to be truly of the martial spirit, which is, as Jalaluddin Rumi said, sometimes we pick up the sword to take the sword out of the hands of madmen. And that's the essence of our tradition. Our Prophet was not a belligerent person. He did not like war. He loved peace. And after every prayer that he prayed, the 5 prayers a day, he said, Allahumma anta salam, wa minka salam, wa ilayka ya'ud as-salam, fahayyina bis-salam. Oh Allah, you are peace, and you love peace, and peace comes from you and goes back to you. May you cause us to live in peace. So it's a great blessing to live in peace. But as a wise man said, if you want to live in peace, always be prepared for war. And that's why the Quran says, أَعِدُّ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ. أَعِدُّ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ وَرِبَاطِ الْخَيْلِ لِتُرْهِبُوا. Unfortunately, that translation in the Quran, you'll often see to terrorize your enemies. It doesn't mean to terrorize. It says, be strong and prepare for war so that you deter your enemies from wanting to destroy you or to fight you. And if you look at the Latin word deter, it's from deterrere, out of fear. They don't want to fight you because they're afraid of you. And in a world which is often dog eat dog, it's very important for people to have some fear in their hearts about aggressing on others. So may God put the fear of God in the hearts of the wrongdoers. And the way that he does that is by making the right doers, the salihun, the worthy ones, the righteous, that righteous band of brothers, strong, so that people fear to aggress upon them. There's a lot of criminals out there, and there needs to be people to counter that. And you take your sides in this world. You're either on the side of righteousness or you're on the other side. There's no neutral ground in this world. So choose your side, but choose well, because there are consequences. We're all on the doors of infinity. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Nations are only the morality that they have. And when their morality goes,
All right, so that's Hamza Yusuf. Inshallah helps us to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by listening to him. We continue with how to control our anger, seeking refuge in Allah from the accursed shaitan. So the third method is to ask Allah to protect us from the shaitan. Allah the Exalted has said, وَإِمَّا يَنَزَغَنَّكَ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ نَزْغًا فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّهُ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. If an evil impulse from shaitan provokes you, seek refuge in Allah. He is all hearing, all knowing. So this evil impulse could be him suggesting fight, get angry. She has insulted you, right? She actually, she is denouncing you. She is disgracing you. All kinds of suggestions from shaitan that causes you to want to get angry. So that is the impulse that comes around you. So you ask Allah to protect you. And that is seeking the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is a dua. Ya Allah, I seek your protection from the shaitan, the accursed shaitan. Or we can even say another dua. Rabbi ya'udhu bika min hamazati shayatin. My Rabb, I seek your protection from the whispers of the shaitan. Wa'udhu bika Rabbi ayyahdurun. And I seek your protection, my Rabb, that they are present. Al-Bukhari and Muslim have related that two men were insulting each other in the Prophet's presence, and one of them was insulting his companion angrily, such that his face had turned red. He was so angry. Sometimes when you insult people so much that people don't seem to be so much affected, you get even more angry. Prophet said, I know some words that if he were to say them, what is within would leave. That means if he's to say these words, then what is in him and make him so angry would actually leave. If you were to say, I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed shaitan. It seems so easy. That's what it is. Rasulullah just said, but there must be a realization of how wrong you are in being angry. So that's why there's a lot of training, as in the first two. Training is important. Realization of the evils of anger is important. Realization of knowledge of the rewards of controlling anger is important. So all this will push you to not want to be angry. And so you realize that the way not to be angry is to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Changing one state of one is angry. Number 4. For Ahmad and Abu Dawud Ahmad and Abu Dawud have related that Rasulullah said, if one of you becomes angry while standing, let him sit. Is angry, should then leave him. If not, let him lie down. This is because you stand when you are preparing to revenge, which is harder to you to do when you are sitting or lying down. Because when you are standing, it's easier for you to react or to act and to to give a punch or whatever, or to slap or to scream. But when you are sitting down, it reduces that strength. It reduces that position of anger. Lying down is even better. Fifth one, not talking. Because maybe you will say something that will be met with something else that makes you angrier. Or you will say something that you will regret after your anger has subsided because you never wanted to say it. So because of your anger, you say things which are horrible, which are evil, which are hurtful. So don't talk. So he says, when you're angry, keep quiet. Or else if I say something to the person will say something again, and the anger boils up again, worse and worse and worse and worse. Al-Tirmidhi and Abu Dawud have related, if one of you is angry, let him remain silent. And he said it 3 times. Rasulullah has said this. Wudu, take wudu. 4th one. This is because anger stimulates heat in the body, and thus the blood flows more easily, boils, and provokes the body's vehemence. Water cools it down and returns it to its natural state. Ahmad and At-Tirmidhi have related that Rasulullah said, anger is a live coal burning in the child of Adam's heart. Child of Adam, the children of Adam becomes child of Adam, one child, one person. So anger is like a burning coal. So it burns in your heart. So you need to control your anger and not to allow it to boil over. And the way to do it is to take your wudu when you are angry. This is aside from noticing that wudu is a form of worship bearing the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This besides the fact that wudu is a form of worship, and in wudu we are in a state of remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why it's very important for us, right, to be focused in our wudu, to realize that wudu is an act of ibadah, and we want to be in the best state when we take wudu, to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, to be making du'as along the way, and to say, start off with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, right, and the niyat and everything, so you are in a state of worship. Shaitan, who fans the flames of anger inside a person, withdraws when there is zikr. So when you are in the state of remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and besides it cooling you off from the anger, it also causes the shaitan to move away from you. Ahmad and Abu Dawud have related that he said anger is from shaitan, and shaitan was created from fire. If one of you is angry, let him perform wudu. So from Rasulullah SAW, of course, hadith. Anger for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anger is blameworthy, and the anger that a Muslim is required to treat and stay away from, it causes it that is that which seeks revenge for one's ego, not anger for Allah, the exalted, and to give victory to his religion. So you can be angry for Allah and be angry, and you out of your anger, right, work to bring victory to Islam. As for that which is for Allah the exalted, it is caused by a transgression against what is sacred in the religion, such as a challenge to its theology, or an attack on its moral and manners, or disparaging of its worship, making fun of the Quran. All this we must be angry, but how we show our anger is also very important. We look at the examples from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah, there's lots of Muslims, they're very angry when people make fun of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, people make fun of the Quran, people try to burn the Quran, they do all kinds of things to make us angry, and eventually they will show that the Muslims are unreasonable. But recently there was an attempt to burn the Quran. There was actually an act of burning the Quran in Sweden, I think, and a Muslim actually he actually took the Taurat and wanted to burn the Taurat in front of the Jewish embassy, Israel embassy, and he was stopped. Then he proves his point. Why are you stopping me when you're not stopping the Quran being burnt? Right? He says he didn't intend to burn the Taurat because the Taurat is a book of contains scripture from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is to show a point that you are okay with the burning of the Quran because it's called freedom of speech or freedom of act or whatever you call it. But why am I not allowed to express my freedom of choice here, right? And you are against me. So how we do this, right? This we're angry, but we need to know how to put the anger in place, right? Because sometimes we know they purposely do it to make us angry so that they can find faults with Islam. So it could also be because a Muslim individual is being disparaged or his honor or his wealth. So we can fight for the rights of others, but then again, we need to look at the situation. And Rasulullah also, in Mecca, when many of the Sahabas were being ill-treated, were being abused, but he told them to be patient because in Mecca, it was not the place for them to fight against anyone because they do not have the means. Of course, Allah is always there to help, right? But Allah also wants us to learn to hold ourselves and also to wait for the help of Allah to come. In this case, it is praiseworthy trait and required conduct. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, قَاتِلُوهُمْ يُعَذِّبْهُمُ اللَّهُ بِأَيْدِيكَ ويحزوهم وينصرك عليهم ويشفي صدور قوم مؤمنين ويذهب غيظ قلوبهم. Fight them, Allah will punish them at your hands and disgrace them and help you against them and heal the hearts of those who believe. He will remove the rage from their hearts. So this is an instruction to fight them. And then Allah will punish them at your hands. That means they will be humiliated by you, by the fact that you would win over them. That means by your hands, that means you fight them and they will be punished because of the humiliation. And Allah will help against them. And Allah will heal the hearts of those who believe. He will remove the rage from their hearts. And the believers, right, the hearts are affected because of the tortures and everything. And Allah will remove the rage from their hearts. So this is Allah's promise on the believers. So when Allah instructs us to fight, but in Mecca, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not instruct any fighting against the disbelievers. Also, although the disbelievers were really, really bad in the treatment of the Muslims, we saw how they beat up Abu Zar al-Ghifari, how they beat up, how they humiliated Rasulullah. When Allah wants to protect his prophet, he did it. Right? When they were trying to step on the head of the prophet, the Abu Jahl, one of the Quraysh leaders, wanted to step on the head of the Prophet while he was doing his sujood. And Allah will not allow that. So the angel came down and attacked him, right? So it came down as Allah sent some kind of a horrible looking thing to attack him. All right. It has been authentically reported that he, Rasulullah, was more modest than the virgin behind the curtain. But if he saw something he disliked, we knew it from his face, as has been related by Al-Bukhari. So he is very shy. He is not going to attack people just like that. You know, the virgin behind a curtain. That's what they call it. Adra. Adra means a virgin who has never been married, and a woman like this would typically have a curtain in the house that she would sit behind, right? Because she was shy to meet people. Those days, when women are shy and have such great virtues, right? So Rasulullah was very shy. He doesn't like to be seen as being angry. But at times when violation of the laws of Allah occurs, you can see the anger on his face. Al-Bukhari, Muslim, and others have related that he, Rasulullah, would not be angered by anything, but if anything Allah had declared inviolable was violated, nothing would stop his anger. So he gets angry for Allah, not for himself. The angry person is responsible for his behavior. If someone destroys or damages of something of value while he is angry, he is responsible for it and he has to pay compensation. If he kills someone deliberately and out of hostility, he deserves retaliation. So out of anger, he ends up killing some people, then he has to pay for it. If he utters something blasphemous, the ruling is that he has apostated from Islam until he repents. If he makes a vow, the vow stands. If he divorces his wife, the divorce is valid and in effect. So this is the reality of anger. When you divorce your wife in anger, the divorce is valid and is in effect. The hadith advises that the Muslims be keen for sincere advice and be aware of the ways of goodness and seek more beneficial knowledge and fair admonition. Likewise, it advises that the Muslim speaks less and work more and follow the excellent model. So that's the hadith, right? From the hadith, we see that the Sahaba is keen to be advised. And he's always finding ways and means to go to heaven. What are the things that will help me to be going to heaven? And it's always aware of ways of goodness and seek more beneficial knowledge and fair admonition, good counsel, right? So what is important is to speak less and work more and follow the excellent model. All right, alhamdulillah. So that is hadith number 16. We continue on with Fussilat. The name for the surah Fussilat is Hamim Sajdah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We did verses 4 and 5. In this verse, the surah starts off with, sorry. Yeah. The Quran brings good news and warnings, but most turn away, so they do not hear. So because they do not turn away from the Quran, they are not able to appreciate the good news and also to be warned by the consequences of bad behavior. They said that their hearts are covered and their ears are deaf, and there's a screen between them and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A screen between them and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is how they say they don't want to listen to good that Rasulullah has brought, and they say there is a screen between them and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They will continue to work against the Quran, and he can do what he was doing. So they have decided to break off from him and continue doing work against the Quran. Continue on to the next verse. Qul, say, innama, only that, ana, I, basharun, a man. I'm a man. Mithlukum, like you. Yuha is revealed. Ilayya, to me. Annama, that. Ilahukum, your God. Ilahu wahid, is one God. So he says, I am only a mortal like you. It is revealed to me that your Allah, your God, is one God. Therefore, follow. There's no word Allah here actually for the translation to say that. Use the word Allah. You have God, ilayya. You have annama ilahukum, ilah is wahid. So I'm not sure why the translation use the word Allah. Your God is one God. Therefore, follow the right way to Him and ask His forgiveness and woe to the polytheist. So that's another way. Sorry. Fastaqimu, then be upright. Ilayhi, to Him, wastaghfiruhu, and seek His forgiveness. Wawailul lil mushrikeen, and woe to the polytheists. Therefore, follow the right way, that is fastaqimu, to Him, ilayhi, and ask His forgiveness, seek His forgiveness, wastaghfiruhu, and woe, wawailul lil mushrikeen, woe to the polytheists. All right, so Rasulullah just declared that He is human, just like you. That's what it is. I'm just as human as you are. I'm made of flesh and bones. When you say a bashar, insan is a different word for man. Bashar is a different word of man, right? Bashar is to identify man as one made up of skin and bone and flesh. Right? Qul innama ana, only that I am a man just like you. So this is an instruction to Rasulullah SAW from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to say that only that, the reality is that I am a man just like you. As a concise and simple response to their attitude and reactions, the Prophet ﷺ has been advised to state the reality of his role. It's only a human being and has no power to inflict any harm or bring good. So that's what it is. They have been asking him, right? They have been challenging him. Bring on whatever you are threatening us with. We are not afraid. Bring it on. If you're really truthful, you say this, you say that, you say we will be resurrected. Bring back our forefathers now if you think we can be resurrected. So all these things are their ways of denying the Quran. And Rasulullah is saying, well, yes, Rasulullah is taught here by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to say that only that, innama, I am a man like you. It is not in his power to remove the covering that envelopes their hearts, open their ears, and tear away the curtain which they have drawn between him and themselves. He's not able to do that. You say there's a covering in your ears, hearts. Well, what can I do? You say there's a covering in your ears. Well, I can't do much, you see. Right? I'm just human. I don't have magic here. He can make only him understand who is inclined to listen. So if you want to listen, then you will understand. If you don't want to listen, you turn away, and that's it. Too bad for you. Yuha is revealed to me, ilayya, annama, that what that there is, that only that your God is one God. So what is my message here to you is that you have only one God, and that's it. Allah is your God. He doesn't say about Allah, he says, that's it, one God is your God. But of course, this is already 10 years, 11 years of his mission in Mecca. They know what he is trying to, what it means here, that the God is, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You may, if you so like, put coverings on your hearts and make your ears deaf, but the fact is that you don't have many gods. There's only one God whose slaves you are. And this is no philosophy which I might have thought out myself, and which might have equal probability of being true or false. But this reality has been made known to me through revelation, which cannot admit of any likelihood of error. No doubt he is a man, but he receives divine guidance. So that is a reality. He only knew about it by revelation, because all this while, people around him has been praying to all kinds of gods, right? And he is not aware of the reality of who God is until he received revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Although he was protected in many ways against worshipping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fastaqimu ilayhi. Then, right, or so, fa can be so. So you need to istiqamah to him. That means turn to him, be inclined to him, move on the right path, right? Means stay upright to him. So this is what it is. When one believes in the sole Godhead of Allah, one would want to dedicate one's life to him. Thus, an instruction to be upright. Stand up for your beliefs, for our beliefs, and live life in total obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we ask Allah to bless us with ihdinas siratal mustaqim. This is the word istiqa is fastaqimu, instruction, and this is instruction. Fastaqimu, then go and be upright. So we ask Allah to include us among those people who are upright. Mustaqim siratal, they are the path of those who are upright. Siratal mustaqim. So we call it the uprighting path, the path that makes you upright. Wastaghfiruhu, and seek his forgiveness. So this is very important as we move on in our life, being upright for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We continuously ask Allah to forgive us. Also, we need to constantly seek forgiveness from our own faults. Sins confound us and prevent us from releasing ourselves to reach great heights of spirituality. And we are confounded, we are bogged down, we are shackled, we are chained to the world because of our sins. Our sins is literally heavy on us, and it actually prevents us from gaining spiritual heights. Ask for his forgiveness for the unfaithfulness that you have been showing so far towards him, for the shirk and disbelief and disobedience that you have been committing till now, and for the sins that you happen to commit due to the forgetfulness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's what it is. We have one God, stay upright for him, to him, right? Move in the upright way to him, seek his forgiveness at all times, because you're always in a state of doing wrong. Wailul lil mushrikeen, and woe to those who give partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the polytheists. A warning and a curse on the polytheists, those who don't want to follow the above message and continue to practice polytheism. They are the losers, destined for destruction and eternal punishment. So if you don't want to believe that my message to you is just there's only one God, so you should be upright for him, and you should ask for his forgiveness. If you don't, and you take other gods than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you'll be cursed. Or you'll be cursed and you'll be losers. Polytheism, in addition to being a crime of falsehood, ingratitude, and injustice against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is also a crime against humanity and against the polytheist himself. Right? So it is definitely falsehood, because there is nobody who can be of none. No creature of Allah can be of the same status of Allah with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ingratitude, because you have a God who has done good to you, and yet you don't want to worship God, your God, but you worship others. Injustice against Allah, because it is Allah's right that you should worship him and not give him partners. A crime against humanity, right? Because you have encouraged people, allowed people to disobey Allah and turn to others than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and cause them to be in an evil state, and of course against himself, because he has wronged his soul by taking gods other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right. Allazina la yu'tuna zakah, those not they give the zakah, wahum, and they bil akhirati, in the hereafter, hum kafirun, they are disbelievers. Alladhina la yu'tuna zakata wa hum bil akhirati hum kafirun, those who do not give poor rate and they are disbelievers in the hereafter. Allah highlights one of the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those people who doesn't want to give zakat, right, they are considered as polytheists, because this is describing the polytheists. The polytheists are those who does not want to give zakat. Ali bin Abi Talha reported from Ibn Abbas that this means those who do not bear witness that there is no God except Allah. This was also the view of Ikrimah. What is meant by zakah here is purification of the soul, ridding oneself of all bad qualities, the worst of which is shirk. So here is a different opinion of our scholars, that zakah is not the actual zakah, but moving on to purifying oneself from belief of shirk and turning to the belief of the only one God. The zakah paid on one's wealth is so called because it purifies wealth, and is a means of increasing it, blessing it, and making it more beneficial and a means of assisting one to use it in doing good deeds. Right? So the zakat is a means of increasing it. You are increasing your zakat. When you give, some people are afraid to give zakat, especially when you have lots of money. You know, when you have 1,000, you're supposed to give $25, right? It's 2.5%. If you got 10,000, it becomes 250. Not so bad still. If 100,000, it becomes 2,000. 500 sounds a big, that's a lot. 100,000. If you have a million, you have to give $25,000, right? Which is a lot of money. Although it's a million, it's still 2.5%. But the sound of that money you have to part with 25,000 sounds too much. And so people find it difficult to give. Rich people find it difficult to give. But it is a means of increasing it. The more you give, the more Allah will give you. There's blessings in it because it is, and making it more beneficial and means of assisting one to use it in doing good deeds. So others can get to use that money in doing good deeds, inshallah. And it's benefit others also. And also it purifies wealth because it is not of your money, that is the zakat money. Qatada said this, they will have the zakah of their wealth. This is the apparent meaning according to many of the tafsir, and this is a view favored by Ibn Jarir. But the matter is subject to further examination because the obligation of zakah was instituted during the second year after Hijrah to Al-Madinah, according to what is stated by several scholars. Right? And this ayah was revealed in Mecca. So that is why the scholars don't see this as the actual payment of zakat, but more of purifying yourself. That means it's taking to purification. Those who do not take to purification. And because this ayah was revealed in Mecca and the law of zakat was only instituted during the second year after Hijrah to Medina. However, it is not unlikely that the principle of giving charity and zakah was already in place and had been enjoined at the beginning of the Prophet's mission. So the details of zakah and how it is to be calculated according to the nasab were explained in Al-Madinah. So he's saying that the details are there in Medina, but most probably it is also already present in Mecca. So there are a few opinions to that. Here's how we reconcile between the two opinions. وَهُمْ بِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ كَافِرُونَ, and they, in the akhirah, they are disbelievers. So they are disbelievers. That is what it is when they disbelieve in the akhirah. They find it a good reason, right, to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to want to listen to the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to deny Rasulullah sallallahu as a prophet of Allah, because the Prophet sallallahu, right, his main message is that there is a next world. And they don't want the next world because the next world is very scary to be raised up and to be questioned on what you did in this world, because they want to do things as they wish. The polytheists either do not believe in the hereafter at all, or if they believe, they think that their intercessors are going to save them from Allah's justice, which is effectively disbelief in the hereafter, because the essence of the hereafter is the administration of perfect justice by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So somehow, right, some of them are just against this possibility of being raised up again, where they come to Rasulullah and take a brittle bone and crush it in front of his eyes and says, who can bring this bone back to life? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah mentioned this scenario, and Rasulullah was taught to say the one who created it originally will be able to create it again. Because believing in the hereafter is believing in the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you have those who can intercede for you, then the justice is there. If Allah's justice can be made injustice by intercession, there is no need for the hereafter. That means by your gods coming to bail you out and allow you to be set free despite all the wrongs that you have done, and what is there? What justice is there? That is why the verse emphatically declares them the deniers of the hereafter. So that is why it is one of the reasons why they cannot accept Rasulullah, because they don't want to accept the presence of the hereafter. And people do not believe in the hereafter as they should. They do not prepare for the accountability to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and thus become their own enemies for exposing themselves to the eternal punishment, right? Because they have destroyed themselves and they are not their own friends. Friends do not destroy themselves, enemies destroy people. So they have made themselves their enemies for themselves. Oops. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize that it was that. Let's hold on. 7. All right, go on to the next set. In the Ladina Amanu, as for those they believe, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ and do amal salih, lahum for them ajrun ghayru mamnoon, a reward without ending. In the Ladina, as for those they believed, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ and they do amal salih, فَلَهُمْ for them ajrun, a reward ghayru mamnoon, without ending. So now we go on to the other side of the coin, the other side of people, the other group of people, those who believe. Believing alone is not enough. You must do amal salih. Here the amal is not mentioned, but the description of the amal is important to show that it is important that your amal be salihat. Salihat means it is a deed which is according to the teachings of Rasulullah SAW, and it is also doing sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it must be with belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So belief and doing and acting on your belief. Believing alone is not enough without action on your belief. On the other hand, there are those who not only believe but act on their belief. They perform amal saleh, action sanctioned by Allah, and sincerely for Him. Lahum ajruhum ghayru mamnun. For them especially, so lahum is brought forward. For them especially a reward that is without ending. You have everlasting reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those who listen to the message, believe in it, and then live their lives righteously according to its teachings, they will enjoy eternal rewards that will never end, nor will have any interruptions. So there's reward. Could be in the next world, where you have, inshallah, it will be in the next world. In Jannah is everlasting. But in this world also, those who do amal salih, they are rewarded with lots of good, lots of happiness and joy. And even in times of trials and tribulation, they are able to handle it well because they believe that Allah is always there looking on at that. And when you are patient, there's lots of reward for the patient. The word mamnoon used in the verse for uninterrupted can also be translated as that which is bestowed without being reminded of the favor. So that is another meaning. That means you are blessed with so much. Allah didn't remind you of the favor. You are blessed with doing what's good. All right. We don't normally recite and recall. We just go on to the next verse. All right, next verse. Qul, say, A'innakum, do indeed you, A'innakum is a question, is it you? La takfuruna, definitely you deny, billadhi, in the one, khalaqal arda, he created the earth, fi yawmain, in 2 days. Wataj'aluna, and you placed for him andadan lahu, wataj'aluna lahu andadan, partners. Dhalika Rabbul Alamin, that is the Rabb of the worlds. Wataj'aluna lahu andadan, Dhalika Rabbul Alamin. So Allah says, say, Allah tells Rasulullah to say to them, A'innakum, is it that you, la takfuruna, you disbelieved, billadhi, in the one, khalaqal arda, he created the earth in 2 days. So Allah is telling us that he created the earth in 2 days. Somehow they seem to know that Allah has created the earth in 2 days. By the creation of the earth in 2 days, 2 stages are being intended. Prior to the creation of the earth and the heaven and the emergence of night, day, month, and a year, there existed no days that we say Allah Almighty created the earth in 2 days. Divine omnipotence accompanies his omniscience, and although Allah Almighty may create the heavens and the earth and whatever exists between them at one time, and the recurrent causes, be and it was, indicate the same, but he created the heavens and the earth in several stages, which bears testimony to the fact that exercising power requires consideration and expediency, and creation was expediently carried out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right, he's telling you there's time frame for everything, there's planning for everything. Although he doesn't need to plan, he can just say be and it is. But he is telling us that there is, he does it in 2 days. This is a reproach of mankind, a form of a rhetorical question addressed to Rasulullah, as I'm saying. O Muhammad, say unto these disbelievers, do you disbelieve and deny Allah Almighty who created the earth in 2 days, and you set up rivals in worship for him? Although the verse addresses the idolaters of the Quraysh who never denied Allah in the Quran, is regarded their polytheism as disbelief. Yes, they believe in Allah. That is why in many parts of the Quran, Allah says those who believe in Allah and the hereafter, because they believe in Allah, but they don't want to believe in the hereafter. Right? They never denied Allah, but the Quran considered them as polytheists. Allah didn't call them mushriks, but called them as disbelievers, because they give partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The belief in Allah is true, and one believes in all its attributes, rights, and consequences of these attributes. If someone believes in Allah, but believes in him in such a way that he negates some or all of his attributes, then this belief is not acceptable, and this in fact amounts to disbelief. For this reason, the Quran has called polytheism as disbelief at many places, and has explicitly addressed the idolaters as disbelievers. وَتَجْعَلُونَ لَهُ أَنْدَادًا, and you gave and you placed for him partners. It is stated here that the earth was created in 2 days. No one was Allah's partners or helper in this task. In spite of this, the idolaters set up partners and associates with him. So this is what you are. Allah creates the earth 2 days, and that's it. Who was there to be with him to create? Nothing was there. He is the only creator. ذَلِكَ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. He is the one. He is the Rabb of the worlds, the many worlds. We don't know how many worlds there are here, right? The world of animals, the world of plants, the world of jinn, the world of angels, the world of mankind, all the worlds of roh, the worlds of spirits, whatever. But he is the Rabb of the worlds. He sustains every single one of them. He is the Rabb of all these because he is alone. He alone is their creator. However, such is the foolishness of these people that, contrary to the dictates of human intellect and nature, and without any reason, they have set up his partners and associates. It may be borne in mind that the idolaters of Arabia regarded Allah to be the creator of everything, yet they give partners to him. So this is this verse, right, addressing Rasulullah to confront the idolaters, right, is to make them realize the stupidity in giving partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no way the Rabb of the worlds can have any partner. How can you give partners to him? How can you place partners for him? Thus, they were reprimanded. They were made to think of their foolishness. وَجَعَلَ فِيهَا رَوَاسِيَ, and he put in it mountains, مِنْ فَوْقِهَا, from above it. وَبَارَكَ, and he blessed فِيهَا in it. وَقَدَّرَ, and he measured فِيهَا in it. أَقْوَاتَهَا, its sustenance. في 4 أيام, in 4 days. سواء للسائلين, same for those who seek, for those who ask. And he puts in them mountains, right, from above it. So, and he puts in it mountains. It is the earth. Mountains serve as the anchor of the earth. It prevents the earth from shaking. It stabilizes the earth. Also, since some of their roots lie in water, waves are regulated and not too huge as to destroy the earth. Fawqiha, above it, indicates that all these signs of Allah's power are not hidden. They are found on the surface of the earth and can be observed by everyone. From above it, right? So you can see the mountains of Allah. وَبَارِكَ فِيهَا, and he blessed in it. Allah blessed the earth with various benefits. The earth and mountains are divine blessings, including provision of sustenance, growth of plants, refinement of polluted water into pure water, sowing seeds, and harvesting abundantly, excavation of mines, preservation of snow, provision of rocks for building, checking earthquakes, storms, and winds, serving as beacons for travelers. All these are blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which we do not seem to take note of. Right? Fresh, sweet water, right? Food that we get from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ability to harvest and to grow things, and to harvest, to sow and harvest, right? Getting minerals from the earth, right? Preservation of snow. He preserves the snow. He didn't allow all the snow to melt, right? And rocks, there's lots of rocks for people to use for buildings, and he is the one who maintains earthquakes, storms, and winds. All these because he is Rabbul Alamin, the Rabb of the world, the administrator of all the worlds. وَقَدَّرَ فِيهَا أَقْوَاتَهَا فِي أَرْبَعَةٍ أَيَّامٍ. And he measures out in it, in the earth, right, its sustenance in 4 days. One of the blessings is that Allah measured out the sustenance on earth. Thus, the time taken to create the earth and setting forth mountains on it and placing provisions within it took 4 days. This is the total time consumed for this task. This is the of the mercies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He ensures the sustenance for all and measured out precisely. So that's Allah giving rizki to all, right? And making sure everybody has got enough of their own rizki. Sawa al-lisa'ilin is a balance. It's the same for those who ask. The phrase sawa al-lisa'ilin signifies that abilities are proportionate to needs. Allah placed within the earth the full provision of food precisely and exactly in accordance with the demands and needs of every kind of creature that Allah had to create in the earth from the beginning of the creation till resurrection. So it's all balanced up. Whoever asks, they will get what they need, is what it means, right? There are countless kinds of vegetation found on land and in water, and the food requirements for each kind are different from those of other kinds. Allah has created countless species of living creatures in the earth and on land and in air and water, and in every species demands a different kind of food. Then, unique among all these is species of man who requires different kinds of food, not only for the development and nourishment of his body, but also for the satisfaction of his taste. Who beside Allah could know how many members of different kinds of creature could be born on this globe, from the beginning of life till its end, and when and where they would be born, and how much and what kind of food would be required for their nourishment. As I said, made the plan of creating these creatures who stood in need of food in the scheme of creation. So he made full arrangements of food also to meet their requirements and demands. So whoever wishes, they can get it. This is all of the barakah. Creation is well measured according to divine omniscience, which is free from immoderation, vanity, and defect. All right, let's stop here. اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت خلقتني وأنا عبدك وأنا على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعت وأعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت أبوء لك بنعمتك علي وأبوء بذنبي فاغفر لي إنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ربنا انفعنا بما علمتنا ربي علمنا الذي ينفعنا ربي فقهنا وفقه أهلنا وقرابات لنا في ديننا مع أهل القتر أنثى وذكر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. العصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلى الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.